Out here, there's no one way of doing things. No unwritten rules. And no shortage of adventure. Because out here, the only requirement is having fun. Bank of America invites kids 6 to 18 to golf with us. For a limited time, sign them up for a free 1-year membership, giving them access to discounted tee times at thousands of courses. Learn more at bankofamerica.com/golf with us. What would you like the power to do? Bank of America. Restrictions apply. See BofA.com/golf with us for complete details. Copyright 2025 Bank of America Corporation.
McCrispy strips are now at McDonald's. I hope you're ready for the most dippable chicken in McDonald's history. Dip it in all the sauces. Dip it in that hot sauce in your bag. Dip it in your McFlurry. Your dip is your business. McCrispy strips at McDonald's.
Always look to the sky. The Dr. Sky Experience is on the air. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
I'm Dr. Sky, your night bird of the airwaves, welcoming you once again to the Dr. Sky Experience here on Talk Radio 77 WABC. Great information, as you tell us, from the realms of astronomy, space, aviation, and the weather world, and also great realm of technology. I'd be remiss if I didn't thank Tony, our helmsman, navigating our powerhouse radio beacon out to the cosmos. He, of course, handles your calls. And we welcome your phone calls to this show and this radio station, simply at 1-800-848-9222. That's 1-800-848-9222, which simply stands for, of course, WABC. Email me at drsky@wabcradio.com. And if you happen to tell other people, and I'm sure you do, at least we appreciate that, about this particular show, if they miss it, they can get, of course, and listen to copies of the podcast at Red Apple Audio Networks or simply wabcradio.com. Great information as we welcome each and every one of you, no matter where you're listening or calling us, from the deserts of Arizona to the skyscrapers of New York, 173 countries in all 50 states, and everyone in between. Get set for 2 hours of exciting radio. And we appreciate management offering the opportunity, that is, to have this show repeat in about 24 hours. Great information also. Saturdays, midnight to 2 a.m. Sunday. Please put it in your calendar. Great things that are happening. We wish everybody out there the happiest of Mother's Day. Motherhood, as many said, is all love begins and ends there. And we'll be talking about that throughout the weekend with guests that align with the topic at hand. But first, ladies and gentlemen, a very interesting guest for this particular hour. I'm sure you will enjoy Marc Beckman. He, of course, is someone who wrote a book that we'll be talking about here on the Dr. Sky Experience called Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything. Marc Beckman, Some Future Day. His show, Marc Beckman evaluates technology at the intersection of culture and law, and he features industry experts from some of the world's biggest brands like Microsoft, Walmart, and many others, as well as government officials responsible for implementing and regulating these emerging technologies. Host Marc Beckman is a senior fellow of emerging technologies at NYU, a member of the New York State Bar Association, the Task Force for Cryptocurrency and Digital Assets, and the best-selling author of this particular book and others, and one surrounding blockchain technology. This particular hour, ladies and gentlemen, with you at 1-800-848-9222 with your questions and comments, talking about something that Marc will go into great detail about. Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the age of imagination. Good morning, Marc. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate your time, sir.
Steve, thank you for having me. It's great to be on your show.
Well, thank you so much. And this book, boy, I'll tell you something. This is quite amazing, folks. This is a book that you've, of course, published through Skyhorse Publishing. They do, of course, many great books with many authors. So the book entitled Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything. And, you know, Marc, before we get started, a lot of people out there, some may have great misgivings about this. I mean, everybody has an opinion on this. And, of course, we've heard a lot about the negative side of AI. But your book brings some refreshing topics here that I'd like you to start off in 12 chapters. And, of course, only a limited time for an hour, but I hope you'll join us again in the future if we don't succeed to climb to the highest peak. Talk about your involvement with AI. This is fascinating.
Sure. You know, it's kind of interesting. I wanted to write a book for many people that I would imagine are listening to your show regularly, your audience, people who are curious, that want to learn about new things, that want to learn how to perhaps improve their career, enhance their family life, and even improve their community. And artificial intelligence allows for that. But this isn't a book that's like deep tech or heavy on the tech side. It's more about practical application, real use cases where people from all walks of life, whether it's the creative industries like fashion, art, music, entertainment, medical industry, government, finance, all different industries can take a look at the book and see how artificial intelligence will fundamentally change those worlds. And what I wanted to do was make sure that for the beginner, I provided them with tools that they could apply to their life immediately. So at the end of every single chapter, I provide the names of companies and links to the companies that they can access artificial intelligence today for a very good price point, in many cases for free, and implement these types of sciences into their life to enhance their lifestyle. And essentially that's
that sounds very promising. Yes.
Yeah.
No, that's amazing. It sounds very promising because let's go back in the time tunnel to 1956, the year I was born, and you know this, I'm sure, better. John McCarthy, a computer scientist at Dartmouth, he obviously coined this particular term, artificial intelligence, and it's so amazing to think in the 69 years that we would even be here today. So let me hear a little bit more about you in the correlation of what you do in the world, because I'm also understood here, if I'm reading this right, that you also have the very popular, podcast program talking about this in great detail. Talk a little bit about yourself.
I do. I appreciate that. So the book is really brought to life through my experiences. I am the chief executive officer of an award-winning advertising agency in New York City named DMA United. I almost said Some Future Day. And with DMA United, we focus on different types of industries, but mainly fashion, art, music, sports, and entertainment. And what we do is we leverage technology such as artificial intelligence to give our clients a fundamental benefit, to really give them value, to challenge, in many cases, the big legacy businesses. So we use artificial intelligence in two ways, Steve. The first is really through generative AI, where we'll create original content. And the second is through data analytics. So that's my business world. But because of that, I've written, as you mentioned earlier in the beginning of the show, a couple of books, including this book. And I've been teaching an MBA class at NYU Stern now on marketing for 7 years. It's an amazing class, actually, with people from all walks of life. And because the books did pretty good, this book, as you mentioned, went to number one on Amazon for artificial intelligence.
Congratulations.
Yeah, thank you. NYU underwrites the cost of a show. They produce my show called Some Future Day, and it's on Some Future Day where I bring in guests from all different industries, from NASA and Microsoft, from Rock and Roll Hall of Famers to even the First Lady of the United States. And what we do is we use technology as a gateway to open up broader cultural discussions. So in some cases, like when the presidential fellow of NASA comes on my show, we break down exactly what artificial intelligence is going to be used for and how it's going to, really evolve the world. But in other cases, it's just very simple application. It's not so complicated. It could be about gaming, or it could be, military areas, deep fakes in government, and these types of conversations. It's super compelling. And what it does is it gives me access to real application of AI. Yeah.
Well, I want to make sure that listeners get involved in this conversation. In limited time we have with you. The contact number here, 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. You may have some questions about pro or con about AI, but in this conversation, we're going to at least talk about some of the positivity that our special guest, Marc Beckman, brings. His book, again, entitled Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything. And speaking of that, in the business realm, from Chapter 1, just give us a little look-see into some of the things that business creators and workers might participate in the beneficial side with AI from your book.
Yeah, I love that you're giving me the opportunity to talk about this first chapter. Frankly, most people that I've been talking to in the media don't give it to me. and it's one of my favorite chapters. I call it The Age of Imagination. And it's really interesting because think about how many people do you know that are dreamers? They want to create things. These are the people that want to start up their own Hollywood studio, or they want to be a musician. They want to write their own book, but they never have a chance to. They can't compete with the legacy industries, or perhaps they just don't know how to break in. They don't know how to get away from their day job, let's say. And what artificial intelligence is doing now is it's allowing for all of these individual creators, like that 17-year-old dreamer who lives uptown in Manhattan and is in her apartment, and she wants to be the next world-class fashion designer, or the next Martin Scorsese who's sitting perhaps like on a farm in India. Well, now they can go ahead and through the use of artificial intelligence, create the most gorgeous and compelling videos, songs, hyper-realistic photographs, and beyond. And it's interesting. It's going to create a certain amount of access in these industries. It's going to create a certain amount of leveling or equalization in these industries. But it's also going to create a certain amount of new content, new dreams. I talk about like the democratization of content at points in the book, because we'll have so many different points of view. And this is all through text prompting. So you don't have to be, a fantastic director, someone like a Brett Ratner who's creating these amazing superhero films like X-Men. It could just be somebody like me. I've never created a film. I have a dream, and I could create the next superhero right in my living room. It's pretty remarkable.
The age of imagination, as you say. No, that's amazing. I've been giving some presentations here. I don't have the knowledge base that you have, but people enjoy listening to some of the things that I'm doing research on. And, of course, the great writer Ray Kurzweil. We have a couple of books here. The Age of Spiritual Machines, which I've gone through. The Singularity is Near. And now what, Mark? The singularity is even nearer. Talk to us about the whole concept of what singularity is. A lot of people, in the astrophysics world, I talk about that from black holes, but this is a whole different conversation. Simply, for everybody listening around the nation, around the world, what is the whole concept of singularity? What does that mean?
So as it relates to AI, and to keep it really simple at first, essentially this is the moment when artificial intelligence surpasses human intelligence. Now, on the upside, that could be incredible because it could create groundbreaking moments for mankind that could relate to everything from space travel and exploration to medical advancements and beyond. But there's a downside, a dark side to it as well. People fear that when we reach singularity, it might also create the end of humanity, because artificial intelligence will cause, perhaps a total loss of control, accidental extinction, weaponization, where, the AI takes over our nuclear weapons and points them back at us. So there's a lot of conflicting thoughts as to, singularity. And, to be honest with you, a lot of people think that this is going to happen much quicker because artificial intelligence is growing, is essentially training itself at a higher or more accelerated pace than was expected. So, as far as I'm concerned, I want to tell you, I'm not one of these people that believes that singularity brings the end of humanity. Again, I'm a tech optimist, and I think what singularity will do for us is create great value for communities, and with that, it will enhance access to food. It will enhance our access to better medical services. I think AI will effectively, or singularity, let's say, when we get there, will effectively rise humanity to the next level.
Well, Mark, it's interesting. Myself and everybody out there is not naive. We could get hundreds of guests that could come on this particular show talking about the nefarious side or the danger side of AI. But why I like your book, and I'm being really serious about this, you're talking more about the whole age of imagination. And let's talk about the area that I think affects most people, those listening now, and obviously everybody on the planet, if they're critical thinkers, the miracles in medicine. Talk about specifics that we have to look forward to or can look forward to, where AI is interceding in the areas of medicine, a much needed approach to solving, medical crises and diseases.
Steve, we're already making great advances. I'm so happy that you're giving me the opportunity to address this. I mentioned to you it's great to have guests on my show some future day. One guest that I had is a doctor, right here in the tri-state area of New York City, who is leading the charge in helping paralyzed patients, individuals who are paralyzed, to regain their feeling and their movement through the use of artificial intelligence by inserting chips in their brain. He's already done this. He and his team have already done this with 3 individuals effectively. And the way I understand it, again, obviously I'm not a doctor, although I do have a Juris Doctorate. I am not a doctor, but the way I understand it, the way he described it to me, is the AI is training the neurons to fire, to move across like a bypass of sorts, away from the area that is no longer functioning, no longer sending signals. So what happens is essentially when that individual, the paralyzed individual's brain is working normally, the neurons get cut off in this like dead zone of sorts. And now the AI is redirecting it and allowing for these paralyzed individuals to feel
That's
again
amazing.
and to move
that's
again.
amazing.
Yeah, and it's 3 people that they've done this with already.
Well, Elon Musk, his thing, he's working on his technology. But imagine this, ladies and gentlemen, and, Mark is not a medical doctor. He has a JD degree, of course, as an attorney and a lawyer. But the interesting part of this, Mark, I think is fascinating, is if, let's say, people who suffer from Alzheimer's or vision difficulties or spinal paralysis, I mean, what a wonderful world, as you talk about the age of imagination, where hopefully human beings who don't have, who should not have to suffer at all with these ailments that have been going on for thousands of years. It's such an important thing. So obviously this is an important conversation. You too, ladies and gentlemen, have an opportunity to jump in on this particular subject, of course, because we value the callers to this particular radio show, like all the other shows here on Talk Radio 77 WABC. If you're just joining us, our special guest is Marc Beckman, author of Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything, a Skyhorse Publishing book. But equally important is the number, 1-800-848-9222, 1-800-848-9222. So tell us, how long did it take you to compile all this information? Because we got 12 chapters, and we certainly won't get through every one of them for information, but that's why people should get the book, indeed, as every person who writes a book, more information than we could possibly do in an hour. So how long did it take you to compile all this? It's something that just doesn't happen overnight, of course.
No, Steve, this book took me, honestly, I would say almost 2 years to assemble and build. Part of what I did, which was really exciting, was I was able to take information that I shared in a lot of different speeches over that time period and build it out from that perspective, too. But, I know you're a book writer yourself. It's tough to get through it. And then when you, I'm curious about your opinion on this, actually. Like, when you wrote your books, didn't you feel at some point like perhaps it's just not right, it's not good, I don't want to let it go, and then you want to edit more and more, and you just don't want to let it go because you're almost afraid to put it out there because it just might be terrible?
Well, Mark, I made a pledge to this audience to be truthful and honest because that's the only way. I have not written a book at this point in time, and you know what? I may be calling you for the advice to kickstart me to do the same thing because so many people say, hey, you've been talking about these subjects, meaning the astrophysics and space and all that. But more important than me at this moment in time, it's just difficult in many ways. Now, people can go, of course, to do the Amazon book. They can go out and do it the traditional, as you have with Skyhorse Publishing. But what I find so fascinating about when somebody puts all this information together, everything changes so quickly. So it's amazing. All your information is as current as it is now, but it's an undertaking. So how long did it take again to compile all this?
I would say it took at least 2 years to put this book together. It really was a massive labor of love. And then within the book, I know that you took a look at it yourself, and I tried to get a little bit more heady than my first book. My first book was about blockchain and NFTs, and it was really like right down the middle of the road. Here's what you need to know as it relates to this technology across these different fields, almost from the perspective of a chief marketing officer. But with the new book, with Some Future Day, How AI Will Change Everything, I wanted to create a situation where it made people think a little bit. It inspired people. I get a little philosophical. I talk about, for example, at some points how, our next generation is amusing themselves to death with social media, where they're almost becoming, I call it, publicly, the age of dumb, where with access to social media, they're limiting their access to intelligence. I talk about the interaction between cryptocurrency, social media, and artificial intelligence. I name it the Iron Triangle. So I try to get a little heady here. And, again, when I finished the book, every time I thought I was finished, I was like, I don't really like this. I got to change it again. And I struggled with letting this one out into the universe.
This is interesting. And, through the chapters, I'm trying to hit as many of these as I can that not only would have an interest from my perspective, but more importantly to the listeners here. In the few minutes before we go to the hard break at the bottom of the hour, advances in contemporary warfare. Mark, I have an area of concentration which we talk about heavily, about aircraft, about military. And we see now something very interesting. We're talking about the new B-21 Spirit, the evolution path of the B-2 bomber. And many are saying that not only will it have pilots, but they're the lesser of importance on this B-2 billion or so dollar bomber, that it will be flown autonomously through AI also. So look at all the advancements in what's happening in the military side. And of course, I know drone technology could be a whole show, but in a couple of minutes, which is about 2 or 3, give us some examples of how this has helped in the area of contemporary warfare. Obviously, nobody loves war, but what has it done in the area of AI?
Yeah, this is one of my favorite chapters, probably my favorite chapter in the book, because I see this as a post-nuclear time period now, where the efficiencies of artificial intelligence, you mentioned drones, for example, AI allows now for efficiencies that include access to weaponry for less money, to build weaponry for less money, and also different levels of control. So now you have these superpowers like America that have huge arsenals worth, trillions of dollars that are, I envision it as like these huge super tankers. But then you have these smaller nations, these challenger nations that can now take drones. There's a company, for example, called Extend Drones. I had the CEO on my show, and you can control now swarms of drones from anywhere in the world to anywhere in the world without a military background. It's almost like gaming. So here from New York City, I could launch swarms of drones to attack anywhere, India, Asia, the Middle East, Europe, without any military background, and really cause some damage. And this is just the beginning. In fact, Extend Drones has
right. And if you haven't seen the movie,
Department of Defense,
I guess it's right. But if you haven't seen the movie, Olympus Has Fallen, I guess it's, or Olympus, that's an interesting movie with Morgan Freeman. And if you don't believe that drone swarms in the future could be a problem, that might be one of the nefarious sides. But please go ahead, sir. We just got a moment or two before the break.
Yeah, I think it's going to be interesting to look. You mentioned autonomous vehicles. We're going to have, as you mentioned, autonomous vehicles in the air as well as in the sea. And then there are going to be other issues that are going to come into play as it relates to different information wars, deepfake propaganda, influencing, the beginning of wars. Essentially, I believe that the entire arena of war will change, where perhaps it's going to be robots, and there won't really be any humans that are getting hit to the level and the extent that we're used to. Think in terms of cyber attacks. We're seeing that now. I think that, this flare-up that's happening in Pakistan and India, I understand that Pakistan really hit India hard with a cyber attack and already took down some major power grids and satellites. And these are the
that's incredible.
That we're going to see in a big way. Yeah, it's going to be.
That is incredible.
Yeah.
No, and we hear many things about submarines. I mean, all autonomous vehicles. Supposedly on the dark side, the Russians have a submarine type of torpedo they call Poseidon that they claim can go underwater at speeds. For those of you out there that are more familiar with naval warfare or have been in the Navy in ships or submarines, they claim that this Poseidon torpedo, about 60 feet long, Mark, has the ability to go underwater at speeds of about 80 or 100 knots underwater, capable of having in its front warhead a 100-megaton weapon, horrible as it sounds, that it could actually destroy harbors and so much more. But there may be some of that on the dark side of AI if used for not necessarily good things. Folks, we haven't gotten to you yet. We know we have Rick in New Jersey. We have other callers on the line. We promise to get you on the air, or as best as we can as we move toward the top of the hour. Here on a show, ladies and gentlemen, that we're so proud to be behind the microphone of, the Dr. Sky Experience. Here, as we have two programs, 2 hours in length, as you're listening right now, Friday midnight to 2 a.m. Saturday, and then the extended version of the similar kind of concepts and topics of astronomy, space, aviation, weather, and technology, and maybe even celebrity guests in the mix as we've had in the past, here on this particular radio station, where Talk Radio 77 WABC. We'll take that hard break at the bottom of the hour here, ladies and gentlemen. Our special guest, Marc Beckman. He's the author of this book, which we recommend if we have a Dr. Sky bookshelf that we're building, the book entitled Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything. We'll be right back.
At Capella University, you can learn at your own pace with our FlexPath learning format. Take 1 or 2 courses at a time and complete as many as you can in a 12-week billing session. With FlexPath, you can even finish the bachelor's degree you started in 22 months for $20,000. A different future is closer than you think with Capella University. Learn more at capella.edu. Fastest 25% of students. Cost varies by pace, transfer credits, and other factors. Fees apply.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay, with experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Finding a new job is stressful. But with Indeed, it doesn't have to be. Just fill out your Indeed profile with your skills, experience, and desired salary. The more you fill out, the better your matches will be. And hearing from hiring managers will be 2 times more likely. Relax. That's your Indeed profile sending opportunities your way. Indeed, the world can work better.
Running a business comes with a lot of what-ifs. But luckily, there's a simple answer to them. Shopify. It's the commerce platform behind millions of businesses, including Thrive Cosmetics and Momofuku. And it'll help you with everything you need. From website design and marketing to boosting sales and expanding operations, Shopify can get the job done and make your dream a reality. Turn those what-ifs into... Sign up for your $1 per month trial at shopify.com/special offer.
The Dr. Sky Experience is on the air. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
Hi, this is Hugh Downs. You're listening to Dr. Sky on aviation and space and life.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, 32 minutes after the hour, as we move into our weekend, we appreciate you. Our very special guest is author Marc Beckman. His book, Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything, and he believes it, and I'm sure many of you out there have opinions on that. Let's, of course, go to the callers right now and welcome Rick in New Jersey. Good morning, Rick. Your question or comment. You're on the air.
Good morning. Thanks for taking my call. I'm very concerned because they're already teaching AI that man is the enemy of the planet. We're destroying it with global warming. That's not true. And what do we do about it?
Good question, Rick. Mark, your comment?
Well, look, I personally haven't seen artificial intelligence, like an LLM specifically, whether that's ChatGPT or DeepSeek or Perplexity, state exactly what Rick mentioned. However, what I will tell you is I wouldn't be surprised if Rick saw that. What we have is a situation, and I think this is where the root of Rick's concern is stemming from, where the issue is who controls the AI? Who is training the AI? Now, centralized entities could train the AI and really shift the perception of reality in many ways. It could educate and influence cultures, especially the next generation, who may become lazy and just rely on the AI to do the work rather than doing the research and the work themselves. So when I talk about centralized power for AI, it's really important, and Rick is really like striking a perfect nerve right here. The issue is, why should we trust governments, maybe perhaps China, maybe perhaps the United States? Why should we trust corporations?
Yes, you hit it on the head, right.
Right? Corporations that have a fiduciary duty to drive value to their shareholders corporations like Microsoft, corporations like X with Grok and beyond to train LLMs in a way that are entirely accurate versus what they are looking to push with regards to their agenda. And I'm already seeing, like, for example, DeepSeek, Steve, the Chinese LLM, if you ask DeepSeek about issues surrounding news, let's say Tiananmen Square, Xi Jinping, or whether or not Uyghurs are slaves, their DeepSeek's answer, the output with regard to those issues is entirely contradictory to what we believe here in the United States. They make it as if Tiananmen Square never had the protest. They say
No, you bring up good points.
Mm-hmm. Go ahead.
Right. Let's get Rick. Rick, are you still with us? Go ahead and give a response back because, you bring up some interesting points. We're not naive here to think that everything, Mark's doing a great job, but there is a side to this that I think people need to be concerned about. Rick, please continue if you're with us.
Yes, the whole thing about the global warming scam is that it's an anti-industrial movement. So they want us to destroy our industry by limiting what we can do by, basically cutting off the tailpipe of your car. You can stop feeding the car gas or you can cut off the tailpipe. Either way, you stop the engine. So everything they teach it is antithetical to prosperity. And that causes more poverty, which causes more death.
Yeah, I have some concerns about the whole AI thing, too. No, go ahead. Please continue, sir. I'm sorry.
Well, that's the big thing, is that the whole movement has to be stopped. And teaching AI false facts like warming is a bad thing. No, warming is a good thing. The idea that man controls the temperature of the earth. Man doesn't control the temperature of the earth, even if CO2 controlled the greenhouse effect, which it doesn't. Almost 97% of CO2 comes from nature anyway. So it's just feeding it with all the wrong information, bad science.
Well, Rick, I got to tell
love
you,
your
though,
common sense approach to it. Yeah, go ahead.
Look, Rick, I'm not going to debate you on the substantive issues that you're raising because in many cases I agree with you personally. However, I got to tell you the funny thing about AI right now is that, like Elon Musk's version of the LLM, Grok, would probably align a little bit more with your perspective of the world than Sam Altman's AI platform, ChatGPT. This is why I'm talking about these centralized powers whereby, a company like OpenAI, which has major investments from Microsoft and happens to lean a little bit further to the left than Elon's Grok, will go ahead and embrace global warming and these types of issues in a way that you don't align with. So that's a big issue at the heart of AI and LLMs right now.
Well, gentlemen, I want to bring up something before Rick goes back, and I do appreciate all the callers here to the radio show that we're so proud to have here, the Dr. Sky Experience. I wonder what both of you gentlemen think. Here's something, too, on the nefarious side. We were talking about in another program, Eric Drexler, a futurist. He said that if nanobots, these little things, which I'd like you later to explain, Mark, a little better than I can, that somehow if they actually got so much out of hand in replication, they could consume all organic matter and produce this thing called gray goo. Sounds crazy, doesn't it? But, wow, that's also something that maybe, if you define nanobots to us, first tell us a little bit about that. That's an interesting story.
Well, I think as it relates to artificial intelligence, what he's leaning towards is even deeper. It's really transhumanism, which I believe is feasible in our lifetime. And what transhumanism is basically enhancement beyond our biological limitations, which in many cases includes technology such as nanobots, small, tiny particles that could go in and impact us in different ways. So you and I touched on these brain-computer interfaces, like you referenced Elon's Neuralink. I was talking about
Correct.
The chips that they're putting in here for paralyzed individuals. But when you could put into these, essentially like you're creating with nanobots a digital substrate within humans, it really could have an impact that changes people. And I believe that we'll see this transhumanism within our lifetime. It's not just, by the way, with putting in these nanobots that are able to flow with like the minute level of like blood cells, but transhumanism is also going to be impacting genetic engineering. It's going to essentially create different levels of humanity. And this is where, people get a little freaked out with these, robots, like these hybrid human robot scenarios.
Well, I mean, there's good and bad in anything. But again, Rick, I appreciate your time. Hope you'll call us again as we continue to move and open up our minds. The main reason for this show, at least I believe it, and I hope others do and appreciate it, is to open our minds on the many mysteries of the universe. And thank you, Rick, for being part of our show. Let's go to Christine. Good morning, Christine. Thank you for joining us here on the Dr. Sky Experience. Your question or comment?
Hi, Dr. Sky. You have a fascinating show. I always look forward to listening to you. But when I hear this, and I hear about the genetic engineering and the singularity, I'm familiar with these comments. I know what this is. But it reminds me of a comment by Albert Einstein that said the difference between genius and mediocrity is a genius knows its limits. AI can't think.
Wow. Yeah.
It's not human, and we can't even fly a freaking plane these days.
I know. There's a lot of things that need to be done in the aviation world. But, Christine, no offense. I appreciate your call, but your voice on the phone, not your voice, but the communication line, sounds like you're literally on the planet Mars. So I want Mark to respond. Yeah. We appreciate your call. Hopefully you'll call us again. But, Mark, you're on to respond to Christine's concerns, and they're good ones.
Well, they certainly are. People ask me, I think, can AI become sentient, right? Like, what is the definition of sentience? And that's feeling, as she referenced, perceiving, subjective consciousness. And the reality is that no machine can demonstrate these types of capabilities, Dr. Sky. Like, it's just not possible. And yes. What I look at is, like, today's models, we have to understand it's algebra. For the most part, what we're looking at with artificial intelligence is predicting the next piece. It's not understanding. It's processing data. They don't feel the emotion or the joy that you and I have. They don't have these AI verticals don't have free will that like we all have. So there is a big right now as to where we are today. There is a big difference between what humans feel versus what these machines are doing. This is why I feel like this is why I personally am very optimistic about artificial intelligence, because I don't fear they're going to take over. AI right now just doesn't have the capabilities that humans do. It's just predictive.
Yes, and something else I want to mention here, and I know this goes along to what Christine was talking about, and others I'm sure that are concerned. If you talk about Einstein, and he said simply this in so many words, not direct quote, that gravity is nothing more than the warpage of space-time. It would be most amazing, Mark, if we ever reach, probably not in our lifetimes, but if AI had that ability, not to be, joining bio to be sentient, that let's say it had the capability of moving along the space-time continuum, then time travel would be something of a reality. Some say that's very scary, obviously not something that's going to happen anytime soon in our lifetime. But there's so many mysteries about this, and it's so important to talk about it. And folks, as we move toward the next break here in just a moment or so, I just want to remind you, you still have an opportunity to get in on this conversation, 1-800-848-9222. Our special guest, if you're just driving and coming back from locations that you were out and couldn't hear the show, special guest is Marc Beckman, Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything, a Skyhorse Publishing book. Well, that's very interesting, because think about that. If Einstein is talking about gravity is simply what? The warpage of space-time. I wonder how long, Mark, in the future it would take AI, since it's obviously done even the simplest things. In 1997, the machine beat the world international chess champion, and the way things are moving along, that singularity is pretty close, I imagine, correct?
I believe so. I think you had referenced earlier the author Ray Kurzweil, and yes. I think his prediction was that we would hit singularity in 2045. My feeling is that we're going to reach that point way before then. I mean, really, really way before then. I think, it will be personally, and from what I read and from what I understand, it will probably be within the next 2030, in the 2030s or so. But I'm just basing that purely on speculation.
Here's kind of a lighthearted research. Right. Here's like a lighthearted comment. What are we all going to do if AI does all the hard work for us? What do we do all day? Maybe we can do what you're talking about in the age of imagination, do the things that are so wonderful for the people here on the earth. And I'm not trying to be naive, but wouldn't it be wonderful, Mark, if we followed the golden rule every single day and learned from history, and that we obviously let the machine, if we could trust it, that's another question, live our lives as trying to be more what? Kind to each individual and to the beautiful animals that are here on the earth. But Mark, we're going to that next break, and here we go, ladies and gentlemen, one more time before we race to the top of the hour. You're listening to the Dr. Sky Experience here on Talk Radio 77 WABC. We appreciate you. Marc Beckman and I will be back. Your questions and comments, once again, to 1-800-848-9222.
USAA knows dynamic duos can save the day, like superheroes and sidekicks, or auto and home insurance. With USAA, you can bundle your auto and home and save up to 10%. Visit USAA.com/bundle.
Bundle savings are off total premium, not available in all states or in all situations. To qualify, auto policy must be active prior to property policy issue. Subject to change. Restrictions apply. Membership eligibility and product restrictions apply and are subject to change. USAA means United Services Automobile Association and its affiliates, San Antonio, Texas.
The basketball playoffs are here on Prize Picks, the best place to cash in on the action. The app is simple. Pick more or less on at least 2 players for a shot to win up to 2,000 times your cash. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code FIELD, that's code FIELD, and get $50 instantly when you play $5. That's code FIELD on Prize Picks to get $50 instantly when you play $5. Win or lose, you'll get $50 for just playing. Guaranteed. Prize Picks. Run your game.
Must be present in certain states. Visit prizepicks.com for restrictions and details.
Your snacking routine can get a little dull. Time for a light and fit remix. Like a crunchy storm of graham cookies, caramel pearls, and dark chocolate, showering down into a smooth, creamy yogurt. Enjoy 3 light and fit remix varieties with craveable flavors and up to 120 calories and 10 grams of protein per 4.5-ounce serving. See remixyogurt.com.
Look around. You can find cars like these on AutoTrader, like that car riding your tail. Or if you're tailgating right now, all those cars doubling as kitchens and living rooms are on AutoTrader too. Are you working out and listening to this ad at the same time? Well, multitasking pro, cars like the ones in the gym parking lot are for sale on AutoTrader. New cars, used cars, electric cars, maybe even flying cars. Okay, no flying cars, but as soon as they get invented, they'll be on AutoTrader. Just you wait. AutoTrader.
This is the Dr. Sky Experience. Always look to the sky. 77 WABC. Now, here's Dr. Sky.
Recently, Hugh Downs was asked why he enjoys listening to the Dr. Sky Show.
I think the reason is simply that with the amount of time he has 2 things going. One is the knowledge to know science, and the second thing is the ability to get it across to people who might not quite understand it, and you get it across correctly. That's quite admirable.
48 minutes after the hour, a tribute to the late Hugh Downs, a good friend of mine and a friend of many out there, a gentleman who probably had more time on radio and television than any human. We continue with Marc Beckman, the book, Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything. Mark, let's go to the callers as we say good morning to Detective Nolan. Detective, happy Mother's Day weekend, and nice to have you aboard. How are you, sir?
Same to you, Dr. Sky, and to your guest. Just want to let you know that I'm sitting outside right now. I'm watching the sky, actually. And I can report for the moment that Newark Airport is operating normally. The approaches, planes are landing on schedule and taking off. That's that. As for the AI, and my opinion on AI, AI is only as good or bad as the humans that control it. And I'll use the analogy of a car, a new car. You can drive it safely or you can drive it recklessly. It's the car performs as the human behind the wheel. And if AI was ever to get to the point of being self-aware, which I can't see happening in our lifetime, we have no worries. I have no worries about it because I believe that the humans that we should worry about, the ones who control the AI. Those are the ones we should have concerns about if anything does go wrong or right. But that's my take.
Well, there's a lot of moving pieces, and I want to say, Detective Nolan, I haven't given up on what you had asked me, because we're looking for, and we've reached out, and we will have, I assure you and the listeners, to talk about the concept of space medicine, because so many people are concerned about some of the things that happen on short and long duration space missions. Mark, your response to Detective Nolan.
Detective Nolan, first of all, I'm in New York City, so thank you so much for serving. I really appreciate the work you do. And it's interesting, I gave a speech in front of more than 500 mayors, and you just hit the crux of it. I spoke about the fact that we need to treat AI responsibly. It's like a tool, but this tool is a rocket ship for humans, and it allows for us to flex in so many ways. Other than the tool that I compared it to was actually a gun. It's funny that you're calling in, Detective, with this point. And I spoke about the fact that a gun doesn't kill someone. It's the human pulling the trigger that kills someone. And that's the same thing with AI. Like, we need to be responsible. But it's a slippery slope, and I'm sure the detective would agree, and you too, Dr. Sky, where at the end of the day, there are bad actors, and this can be used for ways that can be dangerous and could be bad. But at the end of the day, humans need to be accountable.
Mark, well said, Detective Nolan. Thank you for your call. And, just on the sideline, Detective, I spent 22 years with the Maricopa County Sheriff's Office out here. So maybe sometime offline we can talk about how to, go and protect your six and stay safe, as they say. Nice to have you call. Thank you, sir.
Dr. Scott, can I weigh in for a second and talk about how AI is being used in surveillance situations now and all?
Yeah, I would like you to, sure. And we're trying to jump on a couple of callers here too. Go ahead, sir.
Yeah, I'll just say quickly, one thing that comes to mind when the detective calls is the idea of facial recognition software. And it's so advanced right now. Of course, China has the most powerful facial recognition software on the planet. But we are using it here in the States already. It's being used in a small department at Miami Police Department. And in New York City, where we have over 80 billion cyber events a week, according to their chief technology officer. He reported this on my show some future day. We're also looking at situations where facial recognition software might be implemented to help protect the public, too.
Thank you very much. Thank you, Detective Nolan. And Mark, we move forward. Let's say good morning to JT. Thank you for joining us on the Dr. Sky Experience.
Hi, thanks for taking my call. I was thinking about how our president is trying to bring back manufacturing to our country, to make it a big part of our country in order to, grow jobs and things like that. And I was wondering if AI is going to have how would it have a part in that, in manufacturing, the development of that?
Great question, JT. Mark, very good.
So the day after the inauguration, President Trump assembled at the White House with three tech leaders. It was Masa Son from SoftBank, Larry Ellison from Oracle, and Sam Altman from OpenAI. And these guys pledged $500 billion, $500 billion in building hyperscale data centers. This is the cornerstone of artificial intelligence. It's not the sexiest part, so people don't talk about it a lot, but we're going to need hyperscale data centers to empower the massive amount of compute that's required to run AI. In turn, this is going to create, in my opinion, a lot of wealth, a lot of opportunity, and a tremendous amount of jobs, although a lot of them will be automated. Admittedly, I predict a lot of these hyperscale data centers will be automated and robotic. Interestingly enough, I think it was Rick who called earlier and spoke about the idea of energy.
Correct,
he was touching a little bit on energy, and that's another component to the AI ecosystem. It's algorithm, which most of our discussion has been on. I mentioned hyperscale data centers as it relates to the compute, but we need a tremendous amount of power also to run these hyperscale data centers. And I predict that President Trump is talking now about reactivating these coal mines that have been dormant for a long time. I think a new use of these coal mines could be also to fuel the power required for these hyperscale data centers. So don't be surprised if you see these coal mine communities that have been, kind of suffering for many, many years now, stand back up, literally powering these hyperscale
this is
data
interesting.
centers.
That is amazing. JT, your follow-up, if you have a follow-up to Mark. Sorry.
Thank you. I was thinking about how, for the most part, in order to have access to AI, you need to have some type of access to a computer. Isn't that correct?
Not necessarily. So everybody has a mobile phone these days. It feels like the entire world does. And this is where I got to tell you, the most value to my book is where I'm going to hit right now. Literally, you can access so many tremendous tools today, including a lot that I'm mentioning, like, for example, these AI search engines, which now already have 10% of the population using them instead of like Google, right on your mobile phone. And it gives you access to creating business plans, marketing activation, original content. You could do it all in the power of your palm on your mobile phone.
Interesting. Thank you, JT, for joining us. Hope you'll continue to stay with this radio show with questions and comments, as our goal is to open up the minds of many out there on things that you probably don't hear every day, not only from the realms of astronomy, space, aviation, and weather, but as we have our special guest, Marc Beckman, in technology. Mark, as we wrap it up here, going to the top of the hour, you get the last word, of course, but how do people get in touch with you? You sound like you have a lot to offer out there for individuals who want to stay in touch, not only by getting the book, and obviously, where can they get the book?
So the book, Some Future Day, How AI is Going to Change Everything, is available now on Amazon, Barnes & Noble, Target, and other major booksellers. And they could find me on social media at Marc Beckman, MarcBeckman. And Steve, I want to tell you, thank you. I can't tell you how much I appreciate being included in your show this evening. You really are super impressive, super professional, and super intelligent. And it's just such an honor to speak with you today. It's just amazing, and I really appreciate it. Thank you so much.
Mark, you're so welcome, and we hope to have you back here again. Again, one of 12 chapters in here. But again, just give us a sign-off to the whole, positivity of this, the age of imagination. And believe me, like I said at the earlier parts of the program, not everybody has to accept that this is without any fault or any part of nefarious things. Who knows what can happen? But in the good side, what would you give us so people will walk away from this interview with a little more positivity than what we hear in everyday news about, all horrible things we're hearing about? How about some positivity from AI?
Yeah.
What would you say?
Yeah, for sure. Well, first of all, I believe that artificial intelligence is going to fundamentally change society for the better within 3 to 5 years. And I think that artificial intelligence will become the underpinning for creating new value in individuals' careers, family life, and community life. And you'll see this work. We're going to have all kinds of new benefits as it relates to extending lifespans because of advances in medicine, access to more food, all kinds of new experiences that will free people up from the monotonous tasks that we all hate so they could spend more time with their loved ones, their friends, their family. Artificial intelligence will make the world a better place.
Sounds good, and I appreciate the positivity because we need a shot in the arm every once in a while from some of the unfortunate news that we hear every day, and obviously the beat goes on. But wouldn't it be wonderful, Mark, and I'm dreaming here, but on a positive side in the age of imagination, if somehow the golden rule was the rule of the law of the world instead of some of the things that we see. I appreciate your time and hope to have you back here, and happy Mother's Day weekend to you and all the listeners. As we approach the top of the hour, ladies and gentlemen, just a reminder from the world of the sky, which we do talk about. We had Detective Nolan out there keeping his eye on the sky for us. But across the nation and around the world, a Russian, if it hasn't already entered the atmosphere, a Cosmos spacecraft that was headed to Venus originally but never got there, is now in its death throes. It's going down to, incinerate or crash somewhere in the world. Not to be alarmist, but we'll talk more about that, I'm sure, and many other things as we continue here on the Dr. Sky Experience with great guests from these realms and beyond. Thank you for joining us.